Right, well, we're recording and we're creating a podcast and we're in Benihoffer and hello, and I'm Mark Nolan, but I'm only here in a kind of lesser capacity, so I'm not going to spend too much time on me, but I am going to ask somebody else to say hello and introduce herself, and then we'll get going. So hello, and you are?
Hello, Mark. I'm Moira Carmenate, and I am the owner of White Dove Group and Expat Lifestyle Magazine and everything expat.
Good stuff. Now, the reason we're here actually is because we're going to do a podcast for Expat Lifestyle. In reality, you, Moira, are going to do a podcast for Expat Lifestyle. I'm the backroom boy kind of thing, but I'm just here so we can just give a little bit of an explanation as to what the plans are, because we've got great plans for the future, which you've been developing. But before we talk about the future plans that you want to do, let's talk about the past plans, because you wanted to do a podcast for a while. Is that right?
Gosh, it must be years, Mark. And to be honest, time has flown so quickly, as we all probably realise. You look and you think, that was last year. Oh my goodness, no, it wasn't. It was like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And it does go back a while, where I've been saying, because podcasting was, to the average person, I think, still fairly new. Mm-hmm. But I kind of thought about doing some videos, and I guess podcasting pretty much took over. So I've been talking about it for years. The challenges in business, things get, crazy and everything takes over and it kind of gets shoved on the back burner. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly been the case. So I am so eternally grateful that you are guiding us through this. And being integral in it, even though it's the back room, but the back room, without an engine, things don't move.
Well, that is very true. Because that just reminded me, there's a song that Riley sings, and Riley is a singer who's attached to work that I do, and she's also now attached to work that you do. We won't spoil it, but we'll introduce Riley.
We'll keep that one
later. But Riley sings a song about people in the background, let's say, actually being the cogs of the city and the oil that keeps the city moving. The song is Never Just Anything. It's aimed at those sort of people who always sort of go, oh no, I'm just a whatever,
Absolutely. It's like the cleaner, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
If you walked into a place and it was filthy, a hotel or whatever establishment, or even, a shop, you're going in shopping and the place was dirty, you'd be horrified and you'd probably walk back out again. So, the cleaners do a phenomenal job. Absolutely. And they are part of one of the cogs that keep the whole thing going. And it's everybody within a business. A business is never generally one person. You might have one person who's leading, but without the team, there is no business. Yeah,
absolutely. So, you were right to pull me up when I said I'm just the backroom boy on this occasion. Never just anything is the song. Why, apart from what you just said about the time and the fact that I've come along and I'm sort of guiding the way a little bit, why is a podcast important to you now?
Well, as I say, it's been there for a long time, and it's been a desire to get it out. But the reason, it's about communication. Communication and the style of communication, I believe, has changed so much over the years. If you look at technology now and how things have moved on, but people still like to listen to things, don't they? Listening while you're driving. I love to listen to something. I guess this probably sounds a bit daft actually, but taking a book. I've never been much of a one for fiction. My daughter will devour umpteen books. She'll go through so many books when she's over on holiday. But I loved something where I was learning, and I've always been the same. So something that's real. And I think with the podcast, there is this listening to something that gives you something back, that gives something to you, the listener, whether it's something that's funny, whether it's something that's lighthearted, or whether it's something that actually you learn something from, I think is important. And I think our messages are important to get across in a human way, so whether video or just audio. But, it takes me back also to, I can't think what age I was, but I was young when I used to read for a charity, for the audio books, because obviously people who had hearing problems, not hearing, but hearing problems, or who had visual problems. So there were different, bits of technology that was there, but people who were blind, for example, couldn't really read a book, but could listen.
Yeah.
And, so people are still listening. And I think it's great to be able to get something out. Clearly, listening for those who are deaf might be a slight challenge, but I'm sure there's some technology around that as well.
Well, I mean, there is, and part of this podcast process, when it actually goes out into the big wide world, is it will automatically be transcribed. So there will be a text version of this available as well. So people who can't hear will be able to read along. And that's all part of the whole accessibility. It is legislation, Europe-wide legislation, but accessibility is an important factor because so many people are neglected and ignored, those with, I don't want to use the word deficiencies as such, but in terms of what we're talking about, they are deficiencies because they're not able to enjoy content or information in the same way as everybody else.
It's interesting actually, and maybe it's a subject for a podcast actually, which it could be. But again, going back into my youth, I remember going somewhere, and maybe my Alzheimer's is kicking in because I can't remember exactly where, but I do remember something, and it was a sensory garden. So, it was in the UK. It was many, many, many years ago. And I remember going to a sensory garden and being absolutely blown away by the various techniques and the various things that they had used for people who had various learning difficulties. And I was fascinated, and I thought it was spectacular. But of course, if you're not exposed to, someone who has got learning difficulties, or someone who is deaf, or someone who is blind, you don't actually think, what issues that they're having, because it doesn't really hit you. It doesn't touch you unless it's close to you or a family member. And we're a bit naive, really. And I think sometimes to step outside and to have other people, it's fascinating to see what is there. This is what I'm saying, that yes, that makes sense when you think laterally, that actually if we're doing an audio podcast, that it will be transcribed. And so therefore actually somebody could read it. And if there's a video, whilst they might have some problems with sight, they can listen. So I think if we can touch different points, then it's great. But it does take me back to reading those books for the blind. It was a charity for the blind. Gosh, I think I was a teenager.
There's a couple of other things you mentioned there which are quite important. One thing when we talk about podcasting, generally, podcasting was created as an audio format. Now, it has moved into video to an extent, but to a large extent, the video that you see with podcasts is utterly irrelevant. All you're really seeing is a few people talking. So it doesn't really lend itself to the content as such. It's just a bit of a visual distraction. And I'm not being critical when I say that. I'm just sort of being realistic, because the whole idea is about audio and it's about speech. And you just mentioned about the way technology has evolved. And one of the biggest things that we have today is the fact that our pockets or purses or handbags have got this little device in there which is so incredibly powerful and can do so much in that little rectangle that 10 years ago wouldn't be possible, 20 years ago would never even be dreamt of. And yet we're returning to what is basically fundamentally human, of speech and sound.
And I think that's it. I think, this human interaction in many ways. Say, when we spoke about this, I had this reflection back to reading those books for the blind. And that's a long time ago. A long time ago. So, but it is showing that, people want something more, don't they? They want something more. I have to laugh that we were saying about, thank God, the video thing is not the big thing, because as you know, I did a podcast with my son. My son interviewed me, And I thought afterwards, I think maybe he was a little bit nervous, actually. I suspect he might have been. And I had no idea what he was going to ask me. So it just kind of flowed. Mm-hmm. But afterwards, when I saw the video, and I thought, you could have bloomin' told me, to adjust the video camera. And I'm still seeing little snippets coming up on LinkedIn or different things of people who've been interviewed on it. And I'm looking at them going, wow, you look great. I look like, it's above my head. So the least video, the better.
Well, I mean, that is another key point, because there's a lot of misunderstanding almost with podcasting. Not only podcasting, but any kind of audio-visual production in general. But podcasting kind of is the most iconic in the sense that it is often overproduced.
Yes.
Because people assume that, we've got to have expensive video cameras, we've got to have this studio setup, we've got to have this, that, and the other. Whereas the reality is, what a podcast is about is exactly what we're doing now. Yeah. Sitting, talking, chatting.
Yes.
So long as we can record the audio, that's
the most important.
Really, that's all that matters. Just a slight diversion, a little plug to your son's podcast, because this is what happens in the podcast community. We plug each other. So what's your son's podcast called?
It's 12 Steps to Success by Eric Mackay. And it's using the 12 steps of recovery in business in different ways. And he had some really interesting people on the podcast. So I was really honoured and gobsmacked as well that he actually asked his mother, But I think I was the surprise guest at the last one, the end one. But some really interesting people in the music business. He was executive vice president of Warner Music on the publishing side. So he's had a lot of exposure in the sector. But a lot of it is about helping people move forward in whatever way in their life. Yeah. So 12 Steps to Success by Eric Mackay.
Okay, well, the good thing about podcasting is we can also link to other podcasts within the podcast sphere. So we shall make sure he's linked on Spotify. So if you listen to Spotify, and it should go to other platforms as well, then just look underneath and you'll find Eric's podcast as well. And then you can go listen to what Moira has to say from her real life.
It was real life. It was very interesting though, because I had no idea what he was going to ask me, and I think he had clearly had some sort of steer. And he said, Mum, it's not going to be what you think it's going to be. And I'm thinking, my God, what is it going to be? I don't know. But it did take us. We touched on some really raw points in life, because he grew up. I was a single mum and with his sister, and had come from a very abusive relationship, and this kind of escape, if you like, escaping with my train fare and my kids, and that was it, to a different life. And but there were some bits that he clearly didn't know and didn't really need to know in many respects, but it was just interesting what came out. And I think he was a bit gobsmacked, you know. So but it was very true. It was very raw. It wasn't scripted. It just flowed.
I mean, some people criticize content like that, if you know, conversation like that, as being almost self-indulgent, and it's people sort of trying to get things off the chest and go in a sort of woe is me type of way. And people who often have that criticism have a considerable misunderstanding of exactly the reason why it's important to share that message. Because, I mean, you said about an abusive relationship and so on and so forth. So why was it important to you to sort of explain about those relationships rather than just keep them to yourself? Because it wasn't about you being woe is me. I listened to the podcast and it was a great podcast. It was not that at all. So why was it important for you to share that message?
Well, to be honest, I don't think I even set out to with any intention of sharing that message, Mark. It just flowed from a natural questioning that came from Eric and prompts. So, and I guess I actually haven't shared it too much because I never would really want to have that, woe is me. Yeah. It goes against the grain in many respects. So really it was about just being honest in the situation. But I do come from a place differently now where I think if that could actually help somebody, make a step forward, or take a step forward, then it's worth sharing.
Yeah.
Things are possible. Change is possible. I've been there where, you've got 2 kids basically, no family, and everything was invested in the business, the hotel, my business. And there's never a good time to go, but there was a moment that was the moment. And it was almost like Escape from Alcatraz, that the whole thing. But that was the moment. We kind of planned it a little bit, because somebody that was close, I didn't have any family, so somebody who came close to me, she came down from Scotland to Blackpool, as it was, and was there. Back in the day, you didn't have mobile phones and stuff like that. It was different. And there was just a moment. So we had booked, got a train ticket, and it was the moment. But around that early morning, when did we get out the door? It just happened. It was literally Escape from Alcatraz. And I think Eric was probably a wee bit surprised on some of it. Some of it he recalls, some of it he doesn't. He's probably mentally blocked it. But I do think that everybody's life's different, and you can't just put a blanket, you should do this. You're not in the shoes of that person at that time. But people clearly can be drummed down with fear, domination, basically, in an abusive relationship. And sometimes something just flips. And it's having, I would say the balls, basically, but it is that really, to just go, right, but come on, let's do it. And we did.
We see, obviously, a lot of soap operas get criticised for covering subjects like, we'll stick with abusive relationships just because that's a topic that we're not intentionally talking about.
We're just come into it.
But there's many other topics. But soap operas get criticised as well. But at the end of the day, if there's somebody living in that situation, it shows that there is hope, there is light. And viewers or listeners might say, oh, yeah, but this is horrible, it's grim and it's miserable, and I don't want to watch this, I don't want to listen to this. Well, yes, it is. But imagine living in that situation, how grim it is there. So it's lending hope to people as well. So your experience as well.
It is fact. These things happen, they happen. And a lot of people live in fear and don't see an alternative. And sometimes there is a moment. So it's having, maybe a little bit of an inspiration that there can be an option outside of that. And showing people resilience is one of the things within Eric's podcast, I think, and potentially in the title as well, is about resilience. I think that was one of the things he felt that I had shown over the years was resilience. The ability to bounce back over a number of different situations that life throws you. Life is not always a walk in the park. Some people it may be, but for some people things happen. You can't predict you're going to have a car crash or you're going to have a serious illness or a terminal illness. You can't predict that that's going to happen. But when it does, it's how do you deal with it? How do the people around you deal with it? And how do you come through it? And there is hope. And it is about hope rather than doom and gloom. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's the key message anyway. There is always hope. It might not be easy to see, it might not be easy to find, but there is always hope. And if people like the soap operas and your story, if they can just lend that glimmer of hope, then that's a positive from a negative. Just to roll back to the podcasting bit, because we were talking about a fundamental human evolution or revolution back to speech and sound. And you mentioned books as well. Now, surprisingly to a lot of people, books are becoming popular again. Physical books made out of paper or trees are becoming popular again, but not necessarily within the audiences that people might think, because it's actually a lot of younger people now who are starting to buy books and started to read books. And this country, some Scandinavian countries, for example, have cut VAT on books to zero, and there's big campaigns to get people reading books. Young people are reading books. But when we're talking about technology, and again, you mentioned about people can listen to a podcast like this, there is a lot of tech fatigue about. Yes. People are tired of technology and looking at the phones always. So a book is almost like an escape, and a podcast is also the same thing. So there is now escapism in paper as well. So is that another sort of, and we're talking about audio particularly, is that another sort of element which you think is why it's important now, because you can reach more people through audio again?
Yeah, I think it is important. It's more of the human element, really. I think the spoken word, how we're chatting just now, might resonate with somebody more than it was something that was a written article.
Yeah.
And I think it's about bringing that human element into it. I think that is a big, big thing on anything. I mean, as we go forward with the podcast, I would like to be able to have a situation where we could invite questions or topics maybe from people that they might find would be helpful and that we can discuss, so that people engage. Because it is about that engagement. It's great that, that there is this push on books, on paper again, because it is, I think it was lost. Personally, even though the books that I like to read are factual, and my daughter will read absolutely anything, but she'll still read an actual book rather than on, a device.
This is not a shameless plug as such, but it is a bit of a plug, because I've obviously written quite a number of books. Well, it's not obvious, but I have written a number of books, but I've just released one about what we're doing now and about podcasting and helping people, particularly in small businesses, use podcasting to their business benefit, and not through blatant sales, but by adding value to what they do. And the human connection, again, is what you just said, and that is where it's crucial, because within this book, one of the things I talk about is the new currency of trust more than anything. Because yes, if you and I suddenly sit down and go, right, let's write an article about podcasting, Moira, you'd write your bit, I'll write my bit, and then we'll put it together. Then that is exactly what we do. We will write. Yeah. And then we'll read it, and then we'll go, oh, I don't like that. And then we'll change it, and then we'll change it, and we'll change it. And there is a huge difference in what we put down on paper to when we have a conversation. We can make mistakes in a conversation.
That's true. It's human, though, isn't it? It's the human element, and that people feel that it's real. Yeah. It's real. And, you can see through any kind of falsehoods, basically. You can write anything in an article, can't you? Yeah. And people, because they're reading it, might believe that it's correct, but it might not be.
And this little chat that we're having now, unless something disastrous happens between now and the end, this is being broadcast across the broadcast sphere as is. Yeah. There's no editing. We're not cutting anything out.
Yeah, so we've got all the ums on it.
Yeah, absolutely. We had an ambulance drive past earlier, sirens going, but that's life, that's natural. So we're not editing, we're not stopping and starting. This is real life. This is a real conversation. And people can happily walk in the room and say hello.
Hi there.
I'm just washing this pot before the end of the day. Oh,
that's okay. Carry on.
There you go.
Yeah, so
we are recording, so it's live.
Yeah. But this is real life, and this is where the trust element comes from, because we're just having a conversation. It's a natural conversation, whereas the written word is often manipulated to present things which are not completely factually correct.
No.
But we will talk about another form of print. Not books, because we'll talk about a magazine, Expat Lifestyle Magazine, for which this podcast
and here's one I made earlier
is named after. Now, it seems like an obvious title, but first of all, explain what Expat Lifestyle, whether it's a magazine in print or a magazine in audio form, what is Expat Lifestyle about?
Okay, well, it's literally as it says on the tin. Basically, it's lifestyle related things for expats, but for anybody really who wants to pick it up and read it. So I created this magazine in 2021, December 2021. I started it a couple of months prior to that. And originally it came about from my business, which was the Expat Centre and our funeral planning business, by the way of thinking, we should communicate more with our clients, not just about the services that we've got, but on a wider scale. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, well, if we're going to do an e-shot, so an email basically that's got something attached to it, and I thought, well, why don't I just do the whole magazine? Of course you do. And that's really where it stemmed from. So I wanted to make it interesting. I wanted to make it something nice that people could pick up. Mm-hmm. And it's really become a bit of a coffee table magazine, because I have gone for what I believe is quite a good quality, high gloss cover, and people keep them and collect them actually. And so we've got in it Moira's Kitchen, so where I develop the recipes and cook them, tweak it, photograph it, and the hardest bit is actually writing up the recipe itself. I procrastinate a lot, but anyway, it's Moira's Kitchen is within it. We originally had Talking Wine, which we still have in it, Talking Wine. So I again, we're in Spain. It's it's a wine growing country, and it's nice to look at how the different areas, the soil, different things impact on the grapes and how it's grown. That's been quite interesting for me actually. I'm not a big wine drinker. I'm not a big drinker of anything, but I found it really, really interesting looking at, say, Cava, for example, and where was the region and how did it develop. Most interestingly, most of the wine regions here in Spain have started from monks, so they're all drunken monks, I think, actually, getting to it. But it was just interesting. I found it interesting. But to give a wider scope, we talk, talking legal, so legal things, finance things, just, a whole host of things that should impact or could impact on somebody's life, and keeping it factual, but interesting.
Okay. Let's just go back to Moira's Kitchen then, because obviously I've got a copy here, which I've opened. And if you do want to get a copy of the latest Expat Lifestyle magazine or other ones, you can pop into the White Doves shop in Benihoffer or the Expat Centre in is it technically Casada?
It's Doña Pepa Casada. So we're running them now. I used to do it monthly, but it's a lot of work because I write the whole magazine. Yeah. So the magazine basically, it's written, developed, the photographs, looking at the layout. Andy, who does my tech stuff, he will put it down. And then we'll bounce it around until we get to looking like the way that we want it. And then it'll go to print. Yeah. So we used to do it every month, but to be honest, it was too much. So and I had a wee break with it, now brought it back in November, and we're doing it seasonally. So we've got the spring one is out just now. It's free, currently. It's free. And it's because it costs a lot to produce it. Yeah. But you can get it in the Expat Centre in Doña Pepa, which is along from Bank Inter and down from La Laguna Hotel. There have been none left in the overseas supermarkets, because every time we put them in, we usually put in 3 big boxes at a time. They've gone. By the next day, they fly out. And people love the kitchen, strangely. They love Moira's Kitchen. Because in the Expat Centre, they'd come in and say, is it out yet? Have you got it yet? Yeah. So the next one, the summer one, will be out in June. Okay.
And in Moira's Kitchen, in this particular one, there's some nice sweet recipes of which some are my favourites, like brownies and carrot cake. And I love red fruits as well, apart from strawberries, oddly. Yeah. I'm not a fan of I really don't like the way strawberries smell.
Oh, interesting.
I like strawberry flavoured things, so like fake strawberries. But I just cannot stand the way strawberries smell. Real strawberries. Yeah, it's a bizarre thing. But you create these recipes yourself from scratch.
Yeah.
So they're not copied from anywhere.
No. I'll develop the recipe. So I'll take a thread. For example, I've just done a photograph just now for the summer one, because I thought I need to get my butt in gear and actually start something. And the kitchen one. So yesterday, it was pouring rain, as we know, everywhere here on the Costa Blanca. And so I made some soup for my husband, and I put a shed load of parsley into this soup, and I still had loads. And I thought, gosh, I've bought double the amount of parsley that I would normally need. I thought, what am I going to do with it? So from that, I happened to have a side of salmon. And I developed it's not exactly rocket science, but I created a herb topping. So I blitzed all the parsley with some cilantro or coriander and garlic and lemon juice and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, as you do. And then I mixed it with some breadcrumbs, and I topped the salmon, so that we've got a really nice salmon recipe with a lemon butter. So that came from nowhere. So I've developed that. Now you'll find a recipe somewhere that's got a herb-topped salmon or whatever, but not all recipes are correct. You know, there's a particular well-known TV cook that she gets up in the middle of the night and eats a lot of her produce, if you like, that are things that she's made. But I've had recipes and I've looked and that is completely wrong, you know. So it is good to take a recipe and make it your own. Yeah. And that's what I do. And I love doing it, actually.
And I suppose the other thing then, by developing them yourself and creating them yourself, you are using locally sourced ingredients, which could well be from a supermarket, however, but they're locally sourced. So when we're talking about expats and expats who want to create these recipes, then everything you put in there is readily available.
It's readily
from
available locally.
local.
And that can be a challenge sometimes, isn't it? For some. Well, for example, I did in the spring magazine Chicken Ruby, based on Ruby Murray. And there's a whole story around that on the Ruby Murray one. Because they say, I'm going for a ruby, don't they, in the UK? So I'm going for a curry, a Ruby Murray. But some of those spices, to be honest, I have, because I bought the Indian daba tin, as they call it, with all the spices. You might be in the overseas supermarket. Thankfully, things like that you can pretty much pick up. So that's quite useful, because if you go into the likes of Consum or Mercadona, the Spanish supermarkets, you'll find pretty bog standard stuff that's good for paella or, you know, pimienton, you know, so your paprikas, you'll get that sort of thing. But your Indian spices, you'll be hard pushed to find. However, the overseas has got a lot of them, and that's useful to know.
Okay. There's also other sections that we're just touching here, like there's a health section which you've presented. So you know a little bit about health and well-being then, presumably. I
do. I was going to show you the recipe, but I'll show you after. I'll show you afterwards. Not the recipe, but the photo. Health and well-being. Well, it's my passion, really. I've for a million years was behavioural scientist and did a lot on the psychology, basically. And so I have continued those studies. I've just done a course this year at Harvard. 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, which is interesting. So that's all about health and well-being. And I did 2 years ago, I did one for Stanford University, which was the psychology of addiction and recovery. 8 weeks of exams, usually doing it in the middle of the night as I'm running a business. But it's a niche that I had to scratch. So I love the health and well-being side, because, you know, it's when I opened the Expat Centre in Doña Pepa, there is a board outside still about elite transformational therapy. And it's all, you know, I am a clinical hypnotherapist as well, but it's all about, you know, the therapeutic kind of changes or modalities and helping people with different issues that they've got. But actually, what I found is that over the years, those skills, if you call them, or that kind of passion became the core of the business, as opposed to a standalone business on its own. And as we guide and help people through changes in their life, as we do, especially on the bereavement side, all of those things have come into play in how we deal with our customers and our clients. So although the health and well-being is something I'm qualified in as effectively a psychotherapist, I don't really go down that road. And it's integrated into the business. But of course, in the magazine, we talk, that we've got it on the blog, Moira, ALMOYRA, almoira.com, has got the blog of lots of things from, eating disorders to, stress, you name it. There's quite a lot of blogs on there.
Okay, yeah, blogs are extremely useful. And we will no doubt refer to those in the future. But I just want to, before we round up and talk about the future, which includes blog and podcasting and so on and so forth, I just want to touch on another thing, which is not necessarily going down a commercial route, although we can't avoid it, and you just sort of touched on it as well, and that is white doves, because of course white doves has a very dominant role in the magazine, but again, not as a commercial entity, as an information and advisory entity in the magazine. And it is your business, and it is a commercial asset. We can't ignore that, but it is also a lifestyle asset and something which is set to help people. So just before we talk about the future, just tell us a little bit about what White Doves is about.
So White Doves, we started off as a funeral planning business. Right back when I set up. And that was having funeral planning with a soul. Okay, so there were funeral planning companies around. There's less of them now for one reason or another. But what I saw was that they provided a service, and I'm not knocking that service, because if somebody has a number that they can call when somebody dies and they don't know what to do, that is a godsend. No matter who's providing it, that is a godsend. It's so important because you're left to your own devices. We're in a foreign country, speaking a different language, because at that time, that is the reality. However, what I saw was missing was the soul. And I felt that it's not just about taking somebody's money and here's a phone number and when it happens, and people, as I say, can be eternally grateful, but it's going, that extra piece with somebody and being there for them on that journey, because their life has just changed. But there's practical things and guidance. What do you do about the pension? What do you do about the practicalities? You've just been, lost your partner. What's happening? What do you need to do? What do you need to be aware of? Where are the pitfalls? And people are vulnerable. And so wherefore White Doves has now evolved into a unique, and it is a unique, holistic approach to later life planning. And when I say it's unique, I don't believe, this sounds quite arrogant actually, and it's not meant to sound arrogant, but I believe they're the only people in the world who do the whole thing under one roof. There are people who do different bits, but nobody's doing this complete thing. So we will do the will. Often we are executors of the will, because we can then guide, because it's an admin process here in Spain. It's very different to the UK. And we can talk about that, how that differs another day in a podcast. But so we'll do that. We'll do the funeral plan. We'll do the funeral if there is a funeral involved and it's not just a basic cremation. We now have in-house the probate aspect. And we have legacy estates, which deals with the property when somebody dies. Because let's be honest, a lot of the time, we don't plan to be going anywhere. And then all the things are left in the house. And sometimes the families are in another country. And so therefore it's a headache. And properties get left because people don't have the time to come and sort it out. And sometimes it can be a mess. Sometimes it can be okay. But at the end of the day, it still needs sorting. So we do all of that and manage that probate and, just guide people through the whole thing. But all of that is wrapped around care. And I don't throw that as away as just a word, we genuinely care. And that's why, because I found with probate in particular, that, we'd pass that out, nobody was really caring. There There was no urgency. The process can be lengthy sometimes depending on how a will has been written. But at the end of the day, it's being on it, being making sure it's driven. It's not just a number. It is somebody's livelihood at the end. And it's stressful for people. So all of that is under one roof, plus, of course, the bereavement support as well. So the actual emotional support that people need, the guidance that they need. And we have got a team of people who we can help, because everybody's different and people need different levels of support. So everything in White Doves is literally, it's all under one roof.
Okay.
And we're very proud, and we get a bit passionate about it. So it's not they're here to just hammer it down like an advertising campaign. We genuinely are passionate about what we do.
Okay.
And the funerals, and because you created the White Dove song, it makes the hairs stand on the back of my arm. And when I've just done it at a funeral recently that I sort of officiated at, it was spectacular. It was amazing. And I could see how it touched the soul of the people who were there. Yeah. And people at the end came and just grabbed me and said, "Oh my God, that was stunning. That was a beautiful, beautiful service. Could never have imagined." And that we're not there for bouquets and whatever. It's not about that. It's about knowing that you've done the best thing that you can do for that family at the most horrible time in their life. And that's what we're about.
Good. And a rude question then, so forgive me, but you'll know where I'm going. And everything that you do, these are all legit and above board and legally binding. It's not like you go to Amazon and buy a write your own will kind of setup. All of this is completely legit and protected. Yep.
Absolutely. So we do UK wills and Spanish wills. I mean, it's funny though, Mark, because, oh my goodness, I don't know how many million years back, I actually trained people for Legal and General on inheritance tax mitigation, and doing wills was part of that. They weren't the will writers though at that time, but we touched on all the legalities around that. And here we are, a million years later. It's all in house, and we have an online wills platform as well, Wills for Expats with a 4. So we have got a number of things going on. The business has evolved, but it's evolved actually on the back of what clients have asked us to do, because thank God that they trusted us to look after their interests and their family's interests. And that is very, very rewarding to be able to do that. We're quite honoured, but it is a commercial business. It is a commercial business, yes.
But I mean, it's also important to be compliant as well, because
absolutely
there are many different businesses in different sectors, and there's within irregularities, let's say, there are some people who set up businesses genuinely ignorant of the rules and the legislation, and they set out with good intention, but they fail because they were ignorant of the legislation. And of course, there are those who know the legislation and set up and are effectively con men or con women and do it blatantly anyway. So even from your point of view, from a business point of view, would you say that it is important to you that you are compliant and that the legislation is followed?
Absolutely. Legislation in Spain is quite light, actually. There's not a lot of regulation around, but you've got to have a good moral compass as well, to know that you're doing the right thing. And compliance is core to me. Back in the day, I was talking about Legal in General when I trained the different guys on inheritance tax mitigation and lots of the other products around in the financial services arena. But I then became head of compliance for Hill Samuel Financial Services. So it's actually core. It's in my DNA, compliance. Not just from a rule book thing, but it's about doing the right thing. And I know there are people out there who you could say they tick the boxes, shall we say? But it isn't always the right thing. It isn't always the right thing. So you have to find this fine line of basically ensuring that, and the team that are trained to make sure they're giving the right advice. And if they're not here.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. We've just made a change. And then, we cannot have loose cannons.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot have loose cannons. We have very tight procedures internally. I was just talking about something the other day when I was taking back, way before I was in, it was after financial services actually, but I had an outsourcing business.
Mm-hmm.
And with the manufacturing side of things, I loved manufacturing.
Mm.
And so beyond the line of the production line of General Motors, for example, because I hired all of their third shift. And I was talking about the Japanese just-in-time techniques, basically. And Kanban being one of them, which was like a traffic light system on the production line. And we would say, about people who we were hiring, we'd be measuring them for different skills. Mm-hmm. And so on the production line, we'd have this traffic light system where, you might have a car on the line, but you can't stop the whole production line for something that is minor. So there was different points of how that would be managed. But the bottom line is about following procedure. Mm-hmm. And so I was saying that in the business, in our business, and in any business, following the procedures is fundamental. And I gave an example the other day, just to somebody. I was saying that we used to hire, when we hired for General Motors, we had one of the assessments was an assembly of a piece of kit, a little piece of kit. And so the candidates would be instructed how to complete this kit, how to assemble it basically, and within the time structure that was given and following the instructions. And you would get to the end, and they had invigilators around. Mm-hmm. So one would invigilate two people basically. So they're watching exactly what they're doing, the timed, and it'd get to the end, and then somebody would have failed, and they would be kicking off saying, "Well, I completed the 12 in the X number of minutes it was there." Yes, but you didn't follow instructions. Mm. And that is like, you can't have rogue people going off doing what they want. And that's the same in business. Mm-hmm. And it's the same in our business. We will not have, and if anything happens, it will not continue to happen. If it can't be trained and fixed and whatever, then it's adios. Yeah. So following, a compliant route is critical. Is critical to protect the business, but to protect the clients and to protect a reputation. Yeah. Because a reputation is everything.
Mm-hmm. I mean, without sort of going over it at this time, you and I have separately had a conversation about this, and there are such a thing as toxic employees, and there are such a thing as toxic employers.
Absolutely, yeah.
But at the end of the day, they have to be dealt with, because it's like we mentioned at the very beginning, you're never just anything. Yeah. What may be perceived as the smallest piece of a team is quite possibly the most important piece of a team. And if that small piece isn't correct or isn't compliant, then it's a whole team that can suffer, and the whole business that can suffer. And echoing from what you're saying, in this situation, what we're talking about now in White Doves, that means the clients suffer. And when you get to a situation where the people you're dealing with at what is probably the worst times of their lives, it's absolutely crucial that everything is done correctly and sympathetically.
Absolutely, and that the advice is correct, because we're talking about wills, we're talking about probate, different tax implications, wills in particular, the number of times that, and we've had this when we are on the receiving end, we may not have done the will. In a situation like this, we most likely haven't done the will, but we're handling the probate. Yeah. And so picking up the pieces, basically. And many legal firms who have not advised the client. So a client has come along and said, okay, so, me and my husband, or me and my partner and I, we want to do this, this, and this. And they go, yeah, and here they go, and off they trot. But actually, they haven't considered the implications of the gifting to their future beneficiaries. And it can be a can of worms. And we're picking up a mess like that. And the implications, the knock-on effect for those who are benefiting is stressful. It can be expensive. And it can be so long drawn out. So things in terms of following procedures and making sure it's right to the best of our ability, is fundamental.
Yeah.
Fundamental. Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, we will obviously revisit every little thing that we've spoken about in the future. But let's talk briefly about the future, because we've mentioned Expat Lifestyle Magazine and it's seasonal, and you're working on the summer edition now.
Yes. Yeah.
We are clearly working on the podcast now. That's why we're sat here having a conversation. So just looking at the podcast element separately, first of all, where would you like this podcast to go in the future? How do you sort of see this podcast developing?
It's a very good question, Mark. I just would like people to engage with it where they found that it was useful, and they'd refer it to other people to listen to, because we're not out here to engineer things, from a sales perspective. We're out here to guide just the way the business is in general. And I would like people to engage where that they could come back and come back to us and say, oh, could you discuss this topic or that topic or whatever? That would be great. That's what I would really like, when we know we've got client engagement.
Okay. Some people may already know from me, but I deal a lot with Spanish traffic law from my work with N332. And we have a big problem as well, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot blatantly wrong as well, but there's a lot of misinformation out there. But there are also a lot of people who actually genuinely want to know the real information. And again, with everything that you're doing, whether it's the lifestyle, whether it's the end of life care, the magazine, it's important that the correct information is shared. You've said that as well. Yeah. So would you sort of look at wanting to get more guests involved in the podcast in the future?
I think that would be interesting for the listeners as well, because that's, at the end of the day, it's not just about us, it's about what do people want to hear. I mean, obviously we've got the Expat Centre, so as well as your kind of white doves under the umbrella of later life planning, that we do all the visas and all the kind of histo type stuff as well. So we've got a whole raft of things that can be of interest. And coming back to you saying about N332, and that there's a lot of information out there, but there's also information out there that's inaccurate. It's the double-edged sword of Facebook and social media. It is a double-edged sword. Unfortunately, people see things and believe everything that they read, and quite frankly, a lot of it can be wrong, as you know, especially from a traffic perspective. My goodness, I think probably in one area that can be misinterpreted and relayed, and that's dangerous. That is dangerous. It's a different thing. But it's the same with, historic things as well. There's so much, when you think back to Brexit and the withdrawal agreement and the misinformation, how people were getting ripped off, the fees that were getting charged, it was disgraceful. It was disgraceful. So it's everything. It would be nice to be seen to be the place that people can go to listen to for accurate information.
You and I share a passion in a few things. For example, human behavior is something which I'm passionate about, and psychology as well. But my background comes from a marketing background, which is kind of similar and the same. But we also suffer a lot as a group from the cognitive biases, and confirmation bias being one of the worst. And you mentioned Brexit, you mentioned misinformation. All of those things are often fed by confirmation bias, because the person hears something which is wrong, and then they hear it again, which is wrong, and that confirms the original source. And so the more a lie is repeated, it becomes a truth, is sort of a saying. The more that wrong information is repeated, the more it's perceived as the truth.
Exactly.
But what we need to do is break away from that and twist confirmation bias around and say, no, these are the facts, share these facts, share this information. And Facebook is a problem. I personally hate Facebook. But hopefully we can start to break down those barriers and start to reset the passage of information with accurate knowledge and advice.
I think that would be great. And you say, coming back, is where would you see it going if we could be seen as, the kind of hub of information that is accurate and interesting and beneficial? Then we've won.
Okay. Good.
And it's free.
And it's free, of course. Now, in all honesty, we have wandered all over the place in this chat, but it's completely unscripted, unrehearsed. We had no notes and no intention. It was just the chat to introduce the podcast. We will do more structured talks in the future on different topics. But let's leave it open. If anybody has anything that they want Moira to discuss, I'm still around as well. I can be involved.
Absolutely, Mark.
Well. But any information, any advice, and let us know. And people locally here can pop in the Expat Centre and just say, oh, can you talk about this? White Doves, email, etc. We'll put emails on podcasts as well.
Yes.
So anybody is welcome to contact us. And also if they've got something they want to talk about, perhaps, contact us as well. I mean, I was talking to a lady only this week who was involved in a group in San Fulgencio, which I'm not going to say what it was about at the moment. But it's a global group which helps people in a really bizarre way with their mental health, and in particular it helps men, but not exclusively men.
But that is great, because actually men's mental health issues are often kind of hidden away.
Yeah. I mean, I won't hide it. It was called Men's Shed, or the Men's Shed in San Fulgencio, which I went and asked, what's it all about? And then it was revealed to me it is this global group that started in Australia. But it's fantastic. So hopefully we'll get somebody, Faith was a secretary, hopefully we'll get somebody involved to talk about that as well. But anybody with the social group is welcome to your podcast, Moira.
Absolutely, thank you.
Expat Lifestyle, because I'm officially now handing it over to you.
Thank you very much.
And it is all yours going forward. But for now, I've been Mark Nolan, and I will say cheerio, although I'm still around. And if you do want to get in touch, the emails are on the podcast links. But podcasts@madblackcat.com is a general email. You can contact us, and then it will go to anywhere, as well as Moira in this case. And I will now formally hand over to Moira to take over the reins and say her goodbyes.
Thank you so much. And now we just better make it happen. And I am so excited. I'm looking forward to it. I'm bringing this all the kind of information out to anybody who would like to listen and share the message with others. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And we will catch you next time.